Have you ever felt that no matter how much faith you have, no matter how much you pray, no matter how much you believe, the doors just won't open? It seems like everything is stuck. And in this silence, you start to ask yourself, is God testing me or trying to teach me something I don't yet understand? Well, this question can be much deeper and more revealing than you imagine. Maybe you are living exactly that moment. A scenario where no matter how much you fight, no matter how positive your mindset, nothing seems to flow. Opportunities disappear, money slips through the cracks, projects don't get off the ground, and then that voice inside you appears. Why me? Why isn't my life moving forward if I'm trying to do everything right? Have you ever experienced this? What if I told you that maybe this isn't a punishment or a lack of merit? What if in fact this is a process, a divine training, a preparation? Because there is something that few have the courage to say, but that needs to be said. God does not deliver wealth into the hands of those who have not yet learned to deal with scarcity. Stay with me until the end, because what you are about to discover now can literally redefine your view on prosperity, spirituality, and success. You know, when I first read Napoleon Hill, something became very clear to me. He said that people who truly achieve success and wealth are those who develop an absurd level of discipline, clarity, and persistence. And do you know what's even more curious? These principles are not far from spirituality. Quite the opposite. They align perfectly with what God expects from those who seek to live a life of abundance. But then a reality check sets in, because often we think that just having faith is enough. And then life comes, God comes, and that apparent silence begins. That phase where you feel alone, confused, asking yourself, has God forgotten me? Am I not worthy? Am I not praying right? But there is a truth that is rarely spoken about, and perhaps uncomfortable for many, but that needs to be exposed. Scarcity is not always a punishment. Sometimes it is a lesson about responsibility, about preparation, about discipline, about mindset. Because let's face it, what's the point of asking for prosperity if in practice your mind is still programmed for scarcity, fear, and doubt? Think about it. If today everything you've been asking for so much fell into your life, money, success, freedom, abundance, would you be truly prepared, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally prepared to sustain it? It's hard to think, I know, but it's necessary. And you know what's even crazier? Napoleon Hill was already talking about this way back when he wrote the classic Think and Grow Rich. He made it clear that before the manifestation of wealth, there comes a test of resistance, of faith, of focus, of discipline. And you know, when you don't understand that this test is part of the process, you fall into the trap of believing that God has forgotten you, when in fact He is polishing you. And here's a powerful warning. Often, what you're calling a crisis, God is calling training. And yes, there is a spiritual code behind this, a code that connects faith, discipline, mindset, and prosperity. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into from now on. Because understanding this code can be the turning point between continuing to live in scarcity or finally accessing the abundance that God has already prepared for you. So, stay with me, because what comes next may open your eyes in ways that perhaps no one has ever explained to you before. And you know, while you reflect on everything we're talking about here, I want to make you an invitation. But not just any invitation. It's an invitation for you to activate right now a powerful spiritual principle, that of sowing and reciprocity. Because when you plant something good, when you share, when you declare, when you take a stand, something moves in the invisible in your favor. Then do the following. Write a statement of power here in the comments, something that will seal your new mindset. Write this phrase of power in the comments. I am ready to live the abundance that God has prepared for me. Or put it in your own words. What did this reflection awaken in you? What do you feel God is teaching you at this very moment? I read each comment, and believe me, they not only strengthen you, but also strengthen other people who are going through the same process. By the way, if this conversation is making sense to you, if you really feel that this is moving you inside, leave your like on this video. This is not just a button pressed. This is a way for you to say, I want more content like this. I am committed to this transformation. And look, when you do this, YouTube itself understands that this type of message needs to reach more people. Perhaps someone who is, at this very moment, thinking that God has forgotten about them. And because of you, this person will receive a word that could become a key. It is clear. If you've come this far and you're not yet part of this community, subscribe to the channel. This isn't just another video channel. This is a space for transformation, faith, prosperity, and growth. Every week we delve into themes that combine spirituality, mentality, and action to help you break out of this cycle of scarcity and enter, once and for all, into the abundance that God has for your life. And I want you to be a part of this, because yes, you were called to something greater, and this is just the beginning. So write it down, leave your like, subscribe, and let's continue, because now we're going to delve even deeper into this understanding. Because understanding this isn't just about money, it's not just about success. It's about aligning your entire life with the purpose and abundance that heaven has already reserved for you. And there's a part that, look, you really need to hear. You know, there are times in life when everything seems to go into a silent cycle. You pray, you wait, you hold firm in faith, and yet nothing changes. It's as if heaven has gone silent. Doors don't open, business doesn't move forward, finances don't prosper, and your heart begins to fill with questions that no one has the courage to say out loud. Has God forgotten me? Is my faith not enough? Why is it so much harder for me? And as these thoughts pile up, the weight of frustration begins to press down on you inside. The great truth, and perhaps few have the courage to tell you this, is that there is a hidden, silent cycle that imprisons thousands of people. The cycle of spiritual and financial scarcity, and it does not begin with a lack of money. It does not begin with a negative account. It begins here, in the mind. It is exactly as Napoleon Hill said, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. But there is a detail that few people realize. If your mind is programmed for scarcity, fear, doubt, distrust, that is exactly what you attract into your reality. And yes, the Bible clearly confirms this in Proverbs 23:7. For as he thinks in his soul, so it is. In other words, if you believe deep down that it is difficult, that it is not for you, that God perhaps does not want to see you prosper, then this becomes your world. And do you know what the problem is? It is that many people confuse this cycle with divine punishment. They think that God has turned his back, when in fact God is allowing this scenario not to punish you, but to teach you. And if you do not understand what he wants to show you in this process, you will remain stuck in the same place for years and years. There is a hidden truth behind the scenes of your spiritual and financial journey that few people realize. And it is hard, but liberating. Praying, just praying, without aligning your mindset, without aligning your decisions, without breaking limiting beliefs, does not free you from scarcity. And perhaps that is exactly what makes you feel stuck. Because you pray, you cry out, but deep down, you continue to act like someone who believes more in lack than in abundance. The Apostle James already warned about this in chapter 2, verse 26. Faith without works is dead. This means that if your faith is not accompanied by movement, discipline, and a real transformation in your mindset, it will not bear fruit. There is no point in asking for prosperity while you feed yourself every day with thoughts of fear, insecurity, and failure. It is as if you were planting thorns and hoping to harvest flowers. And if all this seems heavy for you to hear, breathe, because this is not an accusation, much less a condemnation. This is a revelation, an opportunity, because understanding this cycle is the first step to breaking it once and for all. Napoleon Hill made it very clear in his studies that success, wealth, and transformation do not come to those who wait, but to those who decide, to those who consciously choose to leave the role of victim and assume the role of protagonist of their own life, with discipline, active faith, and an unshakable mentality. And this is exactly where the turning point begins, because if until now you were looking at your life thinking that God had abandoned you, that the doors were closed for no reason, perhaps today you are realizing that this is not quite the case. Perhaps God is, in fact, waiting for you to learn to control your mind, align your faith with action, and break once and for all this cycle of scarcity that did not come to destroy you, but to awaken you. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Comment below on a single sentence that declares your decision. I now break the cycle of scarcity. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject because there is a truth that, once you understand it, you simply can't see your life the same way anymore. And it's simple, direct, and even uncomfortable for many people. God does not punish you. He prepares you. Scarcity, most of the time, is not a punishment. It is a training. It is as if God says, son, I want to give you, but first, I need to make you capable of sustaining what you are asking for. When you look back on your journey, you realize that everything has a reason, and that nothing, absolutely nothing, happens by chance. It's exactly as it says in Romans 5:3-4. We know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. See, there is a process, there is a construction. God does not throw random blessings from the sky. He first prepares the ground. He shapes your mindset, strengthens your discipline, aligns your character, and only then does He release you to live in abundance. And this is where many people give up, because you don't understand what's going on behind the scenes in your own life. You don't realize that today's pain isn't the end, it's just part of the training. Napoleon Hill once said, every adversity, every failure, every anguish carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. And when you start to see this, everything changes. Scarcity stops being a sign that God has abandoned you and becomes confirmation that He is training you for something much greater. You know, God does not deliver prosperity into the hands of those who have not learned to be faithful in the little things. And this is not just a nice phrase, it is a spiritual principle. It is divine law. It is in Luke 16:10, whoever is faithful in little is also faithful in much. So, if you still find yourself in this scenario where everything seems tight, blocked, suffocating, take a deep breath. Maybe you're not being rejected. Maybe you're being forged. And look, this is not motivational talk. This is a spiritual revelation aligned with universal principles of mindset, transformation, and prosperity. Because yes, prosperity is much more than money. Prosperity is a state of mind. It is alignment between what you believe, what you say, what you feel, and most importantly, what you do. When you understand this, you realize that there is no point in just asking for abundance while your actions and thoughts are connected to scarcity. It is like wanting to reap fruits without planting seeds. God is not denying you the blessing. God is teaching you to become someone capable of sustaining it. Because a blessing in the hands of someone who is not prepared becomes a burden, becomes pain, becomes a downfall. And if you look back now at your history, how many times do you realize that you were asking for something that, at that moment, you simply did not have the emotional, spiritual, or mental structure to receive? And do you know what the good news is? Training is never meant to destroy you. It is meant to strengthen you, align you, position you. Because, as Napoleon Hill wrote, when desire is strong enough, failure will never be your ultimate reality. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject. Comment here on a single sentence that will seal this awareness in your life. My process is preparation, not punishment. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because here is one of the greatest hidden truths that few have the courage to speak. Faith without discipline is pure illusion. And perhaps this is exactly where many people are getting lost, believing that just praying, just believing, will be enough to unlock blessings, prosperity, and transformation. But it doesn't work that way. Faith is the fuel, yes, but discipline is the engine that makes this fuel generate movement. Without it, nothing gets done. It's amazing how this aligns with everything Napoleon Hill ever taught. In the classic Think and Grow Rich, he was categorical in saying, desire without action is just illusion. And if you stop to think about it, this speaks directly to the Bible, which already made it clear in James 2:17. So also faith, if it does not have works, is dead in itself. In other words, praying without acting is like trying to cross an ocean without even building a boat. And that's exactly where most people get frustrated, because they learn about faith, they learn about spirituality, but they forget about the other side of the equation: discipline, habit, daily commitment. And you know, it's not about working yourself to exhaustion, nor about living a life of slavery to tasks. It's about developing a strengthened mindset, an internal structure capable of sustaining what you ask for. You know that person who says, I believe in prosperity, I believe in abundance, I pray every day, but in practice spends hours scrolling on their cell phone, procrastinating, putting off actions that could unlock their life. That's right. And it's not a judgment, it's a diagnosis. It's realizing that there's a huge difference between wanting something and being truly committed to building that something, because God is not a magician. God is a father, and a responsible father does not hand over to his child something that he knows will become a burden, pain, or even destruction. That is why there are processes. That is why there are stages, and discipline is one of those divine tools that he uses to mold you. It is written in Proverbs 13:4, the lazy man desires and gets nothing, but the desires of the diligent are abundantly satisfied. See? It's not just about wanting it, it's about acting on what you want. And Napoleon Hill reinforces this in an almost surgical way when he says, wealth begins in the mind, but only comes into the hands of those who are willing to do the necessary work. And work here doesn't just mean physical effort. It means mental, spiritual, and emotional discipline. It means being faithful to what you've committed to, even when you don't feel like it, even when it's hard, even when it seems like nothing is happening. Then perhaps you will begin to understand why your financial, emotional, or spiritual life has not yet flowed as you imagined. Because while your faith is standing, your discipline is sitting. And without this balance, without this partnership between believing and acting, life does not move forward. And this is not God's punishment. It is a principle. It is a spiritual law. It is the structure of creation itself. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject, and to seal this awareness within you, comment here on a single sentence. My faith walks side by side with my discipline. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject, because there is, indeed, a spiritual code that governs prosperity, abundance, and success. And no, it is not mysticism, it is not a hidden secret, it is not a magic formula, it is a principle, it is a spiritual order, it is alignment. And when you understand this, you begin to realize that prospering is not luck, it is not a privilege, it is a consequence, a direct consequence of those who decide to align three fundamental pillars: mindset, faith, and discipline. All of this reflected in constant action. Napoleon Hill already said it clearly: wealth does not respond to desire. It responds to a definite plan, supported by ardent desire and continuous action. And this could not be more in line with what God's word teaches in Deuteronomy 28:12. The Lord will open his good treasure, the heavens, to give rain to your land in season, and to bless all the work of your hands. Do you see the pattern? It's not about waiting for it to fall from the sky. It's about doing your part, and God honors the work of your hands. And here is one of the greatest revelations about prosperity that you can have in life. Abundance is a spiritual, emotional, and practical construct. There is no sustainable abundance without deep inner alignment. As long as your mind is trapped in beliefs of scarcity, fear, and doubt, nothing will materialize in the physical world. As long as your faith is passive, disconnected from discipline, it will not bear fruit. As long as your discipline is not grounded in faith and the right mindset, it will become nothing more than empty effort, hard work with no results. God, as a perfect Father, establishes this code to protect you. He does not release abundance to those who are not aligned, because he knows that a blessing without preparation becomes a burden. Therefore, he often leads you on this path of internal adjustments, where you need to review your thoughts, your words, your decisions, your habits, because it is in this process that you become someone ready to receive what you ask for. It is as it is written in Joshua 1:8. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth. Meditate on it day and night, that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success. In other words, it's not about waiting, it's about practicing. It's about living a journey of alignment between your spirituality, your mindset, and your discipline. It's a daily decision. It's a commitment to your own transformation. And here is a truth that can completely change your perspective. Prosperity doesn't start in your pocket. It starts in your mind and spirit. Your bank account is just a reflection of what's going on inside you. Your financial, emotional, professional, spiritual reality. Everything is a reflection of your inner alignment with this divine code. And when you understand and apply this, the impossible starts to become possible. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject. So write here in the comments a single sentence that seals this understanding in your life. I now activate the code of divine abundance. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because there is a truth that few realize, and that when you understand it, it simply changes the way you see life. And that truth is scarcity, discomfort, blockages are often not a sign of bad luck, failure, or divine rejection. They are clear signs that God is shaping you, aligning you, preparing you. But here's a question that not everyone likes to face. Do you really know how to interpret these signs? You know, Napoleon Hill already said that every adversity carries within it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. And that's not just a nice phrase, it's a life principle. It's exactly like it says in Hebrews 12:11, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. This means that often discomfort is not a punishment. It is a tool for growth. How many times have you found yourself in this cycle? Things that don't work out, doors that don't open, relationships that stall, money that disappears. And then comes that distressing feeling that God isn't listening to you. But in reality, what's happening is that God is taking you to a place of reflection. He's forcing you to look inside, to observe your thoughts, your attitudes, your mindset, because it's there within that change begins. And do you know what the craziest part of this is? While you interpret these signs as rejection, as failure, you don't realize that in fact God is teaching you. He is giving you clues, codes, warnings, and when you ignore them, the cycle repeats itself. Because, unlike what many believe, God doesn't give you prosperity just because you ask for it. He gives it to you when you are ready. It's in Matthew 25:21. You have been faithful over a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. This is the divine pattern. This is the spiritual code. And here is a powerful revelation. The greater the discomfort, the greater the refinement. And the greater the refinement, the clearer the sign that what you are asking for is great. But it requires a much stronger, disciplined, and aligned version of yourself. God does not give you something so that you can get lost in it. God prepares you beforehand, and many times this preparation comes disguised as delay, silence, challenges that seem endless. When you look at it the right way, you realize that nothing is punishing you. Everything is training you, because, as Napoleon Hill points out, persistence is the ingredient that turns desire into reality. And if today your life seems stuck, maybe it's not because God has forgotten you, but because He is waiting for you to understand the code, interpret the signs, and align yourself with the process. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, and to consolidate this awareness within you, comment here on a single sentence that declares this perception. I learned to interpret God's signs on my journey. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because if by now you have begun to understand that scarcity is not punishment, but rather preparation, then it is time to talk about the path, about the how, because there is indeed a way to get out of this test, this phase of discomfort, and finally access the abundance that God has already set aside for your life. And the most surprising thing is that this key is much simpler than you imagine, but few have the courage to truly apply it. Napoleon Hill made this clear when he said, "The starting point of all achievement is desire." But it's not just any desire, it's a desire followed by unwavering faith, daily discipline, and consistent action. And if you think that's just philosophy, the Bible itself confirms this principle in James 2:22. Do you perceive that faith was working with his works, and by works, faith was made perfect? This is where the master key lies. There is no real faith without movement, and there is no prosperity without alignment between faith, mindset, and discipline. And here's a truth that may be uncomfortable, but is absolutely liberating. As long as you position yourself in life as someone who waits for things to happen, who waits for God to do everything, who waits for the universe to change by itself, you remain in the cycle of scarcity. Because faith without discipline is just empty hope. And discipline without faith is just human effort, which may produce results, but will never take you to the level of abundance that heaven promised you. The path begins when you understand that you need to radically eliminate the beliefs of scarcity that have been planted in your mind for years. Beliefs like, it's not for me, money is dirty, being prosperous does not please God, life is difficult, I will always lack something. As long as these are taking up space within you, there is no prayer that can unlock what needs to be released. It's in Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. In other words, God gives you the promise, but it is you who needs to align your mind. And it's not just about thinking positively. It's about acting like someone who already has an abundance mindset. It's about waking up every day, taking a stand, organizing your life, being clear about your goals, investing in your growth, cutting out habits that hold you back, and adopting practices that move you forward. And yes, this is spiritual. This is faith applied in practice. Because, as Napoleon Hill emphasizes, action is the true measure of intelligence. When you begin to move in this alignment, something changes. Because you stop praying as someone who asks and begin to pray as someone who agrees with what God has already declared about you. You begin to live as someone who is not just waiting, but as someone who is already manifesting in the physical what has already been released in the spiritual. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject and to solidify this understanding within your mind and spirit. Write here in the comments a single sentence that seals this decision. I act as someone who already lives in the abundance that God has prepared for me. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject, because there comes a point in this journey when you can no longer pretend you don't understand. You can no longer ignore the signs, hide behind excuses, or continue waiting for life to change on its own. The truth is that there comes a time, and perhaps that time is now, when you need to make a conscious, serious decision aligned with the purpose that God has for your life. And it's not just any decision. It's a decision that separates those who remain trapped in the cycle of scarcity from those who choose to live in the abundance that has already been released in the spiritual world. Napoleon Hill is very clear when he says, "Firm and quick decisions are characteristics of successful people. Lack of decision is one of the main causes of failure." And when you look at it in light of the Word, you realize that God has always worked with decisions. It's in Deuteronomy 30:19. "I call heaven and earth to witness against you today that I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Now choose life so that you and your children may live." In other words, God delivers the promise, but it is you who chooses to live that promise. And this choice is not made only in prayer, it is made in your daily actions. It is made when you wake up and consciously decide to align your mind with the principles of abundance, feed your faith with discipline, transform your habits, break with limiting beliefs, and act as someone who already understands that scarcity was never your identity. It was just a stage in your process of refinement. You know, it's very comfortable to settle into the idea that if God wants it, it will happen. But with all love and respect, let me tell you something that perhaps no one has told you so clearly. God has already wanted it. It's written, it's allowed. What's missing is not God's will. It's your decision to align yourself with a process, to position yourself in the world as someone who understands that they carry an identity of abundance, not scarcity. And that's spiritual, that's biblical, that's applied transformation. Romans 4:17 speaks of God as the one who calls into existence things that do not exist, as if they already existed. And if we were made in His image and likeness, it means that we were also called to live in this place of creation, of manifestation, of alignment between faith, action, and result. But this does not happen in theory. It happens when you make the decision to every day be the most aligned, most prosperous, most disciplined, and most connected version of yourself with the purpose that heaven has for you. And no, it's not easy, because the path to transformation is, yes, uncomfortable. It's challenging, it's leaving your comfort zone, it's facing your own limitations, it's abandoning old patterns. But let me remind you of something Napoleon Hill said, and which I carry as one of the greatest codes of life. Opportunities often come disguised as adversity and temporary failure. And you know, maybe this is exactly your moment of transformation. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject. So comment here on a single sentence that seals this decision within you. I choose today to live in the abundance that God has for me. And if you've made it this far, it's a sign that this message really made sense to you. So here's what you need to do. If this content helped you in any way, if it connected with you, leave a like here. This isn't just a gesture, it's a way for you to tell me, this type of content makes a difference in my journey. And if you want to continue on this path of transformation, alignment, spiritual growth and prosperity, subscribe to the channel here, because here we talk exactly about that. About unlocking your life, about understanding the codes of abundance and living everything that God has already prepared for you. By the way, comment below on just one sentence, just so I know you stayed with me until the end. I'm with you until the end. This way I will know that you are part of this journey, that you are truly committed to your transformation. And it doesn't stop there, no. There's a video here that will complement everything we talked about today. Click and stay with me there, because this path, we don't walk alone. Let's go.